All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a massive, fascinating topic today, culture. And to help us wrap our heads around it, we're going to use India as our guide, a place with an incredible, rich history and just so many different traditions. Our goal here is to really unpack what culture is, how it gets made, and how it's changing in our world today.
Have you ever had that feeling? You wake up somewhere totally new. The sounds, the smells, the way people dress, it's all unfamiliar. That feeling of being an outsider? Well, that's you bumping up against a different culture. It's this invisible force that shapes pretty much everything. So, what even is culture? Well, a really simple way to think about it is like an invisible script that we all follow without even realizing it. It's made up of all these ways of behavior that we just kind of soak up from our families, our communities, our religions. These traditions can be thousands of years old, but you know what? They're also changing, all the time.
To really get a grip on this, let's break culture down into two big streams of expression. We've got what's called classical culture on one hand and folk culture on the other.
And this image just says it all, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the Kailashnath temple. It's absolutely magnificent, huge, built to last forever. That's classical. Then on the right, you see a simple, everyday home. It's practical, it's beautiful in its own way, and it's part of real daily life. That's folk.
Now, what's so interesting is how different they are. Classical culture was often really exclusive. It was made for the elite, the rich and powerful. Think about something like classical Sanskrit poetry. Back when it was written, the vast majority of people couldn't even understand it. Folk culture, though, is exactly what it sounds like. It's of the people. It's found in local stories, in songs, in things made from everyday stuff like wood or clay, which sadly often means they don't survive for centuries.
But, and this is super important, it's not like there's a giant wall between them. These two streams have been in a conversation for hundreds and hundreds of years, borrowing and adapting ideas from each other. A folk melody might become the basis for a classical piece, or a grand epic story might get retold in a simpler local way.
So, we've talked about the what of culture. Now let's dig into the who. If culture is something that's created, then who or what is doing the creating? What are the major forces that shape it all?
Well, it pretty much boils down to three key drivers. First, there's religion, which has inspired some of the world's most breathtaking art. Then you have social structures, the hierarchies in a society. And finally, maybe the most obvious one, good old-fashioned economic power. And you really can't talk about economic power without bringing up the Taj Mahal. I mean, come on. This is the definition of classical culture, a stunning, massive monument. But building something like this, that wasn't something just anyone could do. It took the incredible wealth of an emperor ruling a massive empire.
Just take a second to process that number. 20,000 people. That was the number of laborers working on it every single day. That's the kind of sheer manpower you can command when you have that level of power. It's just a completely different scale.
And then there's the money. 40 million rupees. In the 17th century, that was a truly mind-boggling fortune. So you could see the direct link, right? Concentrated wealth and economic power are what make these huge classical cultural statements possible.
Okay, let's throw a little twist in here. We often have this idea of culture being pure or authentic, but the reality is, it's a lot more like a great mixtape with tracks and ideas borrowed from all over the place. Nothing is pure. It's all about interaction.
So let me ask you a quick question. When you think about Indian food, what comes to mind? Probably things like potatoes in a curry, tomatoes in a sauce, and of course a cup of chai. But what do all three of those things have in common?
The answer might actually surprise you. None of them are originally from India. They're all imports. Things we now think of as being at the very heart of Indian cuisine actually came from other places. It's a perfect and delicious example of cultural interaction.
And this timeline really puts it into perspective. Rice and lentils, yeah, they've been in India for over 5,000 years. But potatoes and tomatoes, they're relative newcomers, brought over by Portuguese traders from the Americas only about 500 years ago. And tea showed up even later, from China. What we call tradition is often a mix of the very old and the surprisingly new.
So, this whole process has a name. It's called cultural interaction.
It's what happens whenever different groups of people meet, whether it's through friendly trade, travel, or even not-so-friendly conquest. Ideas, foods, and customs get exchanged, and in the end, the cultures of everyone involved are changed by it.
Okay, let's zoom out one last time and bring this whole idea into our world today. We hear this term all the time, the global village. But what does that really mean? Are we all truly connected in a meaningful way? Or is there something else going on? I mean, thanks to things like the internet and satellite TV, distance doesn't mean what it used to. We can watch something happen live on the other side of the planet. In that sense, the world really has shrunk, just like the scholar Marshall McLuhan predicted when he came up with that global village phrase. But here's the catch. Is it really like a village? Think about it. In a real village, communication is a two-way street. It's a dialogue. But in our global village, a lot of the communication is one-way. It's a broadcast. The messages tend to flow from a few powerful producers, often in developed countries, out to the rest of the world, who are treated like consumers. It's not really a conversation.
And this one-way flow, well, it has a purpose. It's fueled by advertising. Companies pay for the media we consume so they can get their message out to millions of people and convince them to buy stuff. It creates what our source calls a culture of consumerism, this habit of buying things way beyond our basic needs, all for a global market.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? I think this quote really nails it. Globalization is a fact of life now. We can't escape it. But the important thing to remember is that we can deal with it on our own terms. We can be conscious and critical about it. We get to decide what's worth accepting from other cultures and what we can choose to reject.
And that brings it all right back to you. When you really think about it, the food you love, the music on your playlist, the stories you were told as a kid, what's in that mix? What classical ideas, what folk traditions, what global influences have come together to make you who you are? In other words, what's in your cultural mix?